In 2018, the FBI raided a funeral home in small-town Colorado. Inside, they found 560 dismembered bodies sold for parts. Grieving families had received cement powder instead of their loved ones' ashes. The woman who did the cutting was a 69-year-old grandmother with no medical training. She learned how to dismember human bodies on YouTube. Montrose, Colorado, population 19,000. The kind of town where everyone knows everyone, and everyone trusted Megan Hess. She owned Sunset Mesa Funeral Home, but what no one knew was that Megan had a side business called Donor Services, operating out of the same building. Here's how it worked. A grieving family arranges a cremation. They sign a form for small tissue donations, thinking they're helping research. Then, after they leave, Megan's mother Shirley gets to work. Shirley Koch, 69 years old, learned to dismember bodies by watching YouTube tutorials. For 8 years, this mother-daughter team sold body parts out of a funeral home. Heads for $500. Torsos for $1,000, complete bodies for $1,500. Families held viewings in the chapel, while coolers of body parts sat in the room next door. And when families came for the ashes, they got cement. One family's ashes tested positive for concrete. Another found metal watch parts and zipper rivets from items their loved one wasn't even wearing. But here's where it gets darker. A former employee told Reuters that Megan showed off a collection of gold teeth pulled from the dead. She bragged she'd sold a batch the year before and took the whole family to Disneyland on the profits. There's an email prosecutors read in court from Megan to her buyers. Meeting with hospice on the 4th, opening the floodgates of donors. They have 4 to 5 deaths a day. Get ready. How about a deal on full embalmed spines? That's a real email from a funeral home director about human beings. At sentencing, a victim's family member said, "We will never know the final resting place of our mom. Is she on display somewhere? In a medical waste bin? Was she chopped up like an old car?" Megan got 20 years. Shirley got 15. But here's what I haven't told you yet. Megan Hess wasn't some anomaly. She was part of a pattern. 4 years earlier, the FBI raided Biological Resource Center in Phoenix. They expected 2 freezers. They found 10 tons of frozen human remains, 281 heads, 337 legs, 97 spines piled in 40 freezers with no identification. Investigators found heads thrown in buckets, body parts infected with HIV and hepatitis mixed together, and a woman's head sewn onto a man's body, hung on a wall like a trophy. They called it a morbid joke. The owner, Stephen Gore, had no medical background. Over 10 years, he sold more than 20,000 body parts. His punishment? Probation. Never spent a night in prison. Then there was Detroit, Arthur Rathburn. The FBI found over 1,000 body parts in his warehouse. Heads stacked in freezers. A bucket of brown liquid with human remains floating inside. Chainsaws sat next to sandwich ingredients. The floor was caked in dried blood. Rathburn made $13 million, including millions from selling HIV-positive body parts without telling anyone. He got 9 years. A victim's daughter told him at sentencing, "I hope you rot in hell." So at this point, you should be asking one question. How? How is this possible? How do multiple operations keep dismembering bodies, selling infected remains, and giving families cement? Here's the answer. In America, selling organs for transplant is tightly regulated, but bodies donated to science? There is no federal law against buying or selling them. None. An FBI agent put it perfectly. It's harder to sell hot dogs on a cart than get into this business. No license required, no inspections, no oversight. And if you think this only happens at shady warehouses on the fringes, in 2023, it happened at Harvard. Cedric Lodge managed the Harvard Medical School morgue for 28 years. For years, he stole brains, skin, and faces and sold them through Facebook to collectors. He'd let buyers walk into the morgue and pick which parts they wanted. Payment records showed memos like brains and head number 7. One buyer turned human skin into leather. As the prosecutor said, if it can happen at Harvard, it can happen anywhere. Lodge got 8 years. Every year, 20,000 Americans donate their bodies to science. They do it to help research and make their death mean something. Right now, there's no guarantee their body won't end up sold for parts while their family scatters cement. Jim Stauffer knows this better than anyone. In 2014, he donated his mother's body to Biological Resource Center, the Phoenix facility. She had Alzheimer's, and he hoped her brain could help researchers find a cure. On the consent form, there was a box. Do you authorize military or destructive testing? Jim checked no. 2 years later, a Reuters reporter called with news. His mother's body had been sold to the U.S. Army, strapped to a chair, and detonated in an IED blast simulation. His mother, who he thought was helping Alzheimer's research, was blown up in a military experiment. The only remains Jim received was one of her hands, cremated in a small box. Jim told the reporter, "I feel foolish because I'm not a trusting person. But in this situation, you have no idea this is going on. You trust. I think that trust is what they fed on." Since 2014, over 7,000 victims identified. The industry is worth more than $100 million. And it's still completely legal to start a body brokering business in most of America. No license, no oversight, no accountability. Heads sell for $500. A complete body parted out can be worth $100,000. And somewhere, right now, a family is scattering what they think are ashes, hoping their loved one is finally at peace. They fed on trust. Now you know.